And so as I was saying, we've also created a kind of electromagnetic shell or sphere around the Earth with all of these pulse signals and so forth. So we use technology now to create prosthetic extensions to try to encase us, to encase and protect ourselves as a substitute for what used to be during the metaphysical age, ontological ideas and metaphysical ideas that protected us against the impacts of the cosmos. Now, ever since the Copernican revolution, the human being is breathed upon, as it were, by cold interstellar spaces, non-human spaces. We've had to take into account the awareness that there are these vast, non-human interstellar spaces that we have to be concerned with now. As Pascal said, the silence of these infinite spaces is terrifying. And so that is the situation that modern contemporary man finds himself in. So then Sloterdijk moves on in the introduction to discuss the central image. Following up on his discussion of inspiration, the central image here is the idea of Yahweh creating Adam as the basic microspherological relationship, the dyadic sphere. He says that Yahweh digs some clay up from the earth in the tradition of a Neolithic pottery craftsman, creates Adam as a figure that is hollow, and blows his breath inside of it, the pneuma, the spirit, blows it inside, and this animates and activates Adam. So now Adam is part of the breathed commune. He's one of the allies now who are part of this basic microsphere, this microspheric dyad between Yahweh and Adam, where Yahweh has created Adam as the being to behold the wonder of Yahweh, and that creates a very tight, condensed microsphere that is delicate and can be disturbed if other factors enter into it, such as Eve, for example, or the serpent, or the awareness of shame, disobedience, anxiety, all these other factors that then can enter into this dyadic, this fundamentally dyadic microspheric relationship that then destabilizes it, disturbs it, and you get the exile from the garden as the first microspherological catastrophe, or the first spherological catastrophe in the West. Every time you get that image of an exile from a sphere, you get a spherological catastrophe. For example, he says that the personal basis of this, the personal equivalent of this, is the ending, let's say, of a relationship where you have the memories and the depression and the suicidal tendencies, the ripped up photographs. That is the microspherological correlate of what happens in the case of civilizations when they collapse, and you have blown out cities, extinct languages, and so forth. So those two are actually analogs of each other, and they're both spherological catastrophes, and they both are often pictured as imploded spheres or visions of the end of the world, the end of one's personal world, or the end of the world in a larger apocalyptic sense. And indeed, all through history, as Sloterdijk then goes on to say in this chapter, that through history we are always creating interiors. The human being is always trying to create an interior, and is always trying to create spheres that take the exterior and interiorize it. The stars, for example, plants, minerals, these are all pulled in by poets as thinkers who pull them into the spheres and integrate them, and so that the spheres tend to become larger and larger over time. But they're also fundamentally unstable, and they destabilize and collapse. And you get, for example, the collapse of the sphere of Old Kingdom Egypt is an example, where you get the sphere collapses into the first intermediate period, and it has to be rebuilt and reconstructed during the Middle Kingdom. But it's very different. You get new ideas there. The judgment of the dead comes in. The individual is no longer trusted. Middle Kingdom Egypt becomes a kind of police state. The art becomes very conventionalized and stereotyped, and all individualistic tendencies that had led to the collapse of the Old Kingdom are stamped out. So you get a new kind of sphere there. That sphere recrystallizes for a while, about 500 or so years, and then you get the collapse again with the coming in of the Hyksos invasions. In the second intermediate period, you get another spherological collapse, then the war of the period with the Hyksos, and then a new sphere comes into being during the New Kingdom, which is now a new kind of sphere, a cosmological, cosmopolitan sphere, very international, like our own Hellenistic type world society that we live in today, and so forth. So you can see how in different epochs of these civilizations, spheres collapse and have to undergo the ontological disorientations and anxieties that are attendant with those collapses, and that have to be reorganized and blown up again into new spheres. And so what is constantly going on in human history is this creation of interiors. We're always in something, in a cosmology somewhere, doing something. It's never the case, as Sloterdijk says, that the human being simply confronts nature in a bare sense, confronts the environment in a bare sense. It's always mediated some way. And indeed, in his essay on Rules for the Human Park, he discusses how he believes the origins of the clearing, the Heideggerian Lichtung, which is the space of encounter where things become evident to societies and people, came into being as the result of the encounter of the sphere with nature, and that threshold, that rubbing up against of the sphere with nature, brought the clearing into being as the space of evidence whereby potential threats to the sphere could be identified, whether those threats were political in the case of invading armies or whether they were ontological in the case of the wrong ideas. The clearing came into being as a means of identifying these threats. This is what he talks about in the essay on Rules for the Human Park. But so that sets the stage then for what is to come, in which he will analyze microspheres. And this book, as he has said elsewhere, ontology is applied immunology, he says, but it's also, in the case of this book, it's a hidden excavation of the Great Mother. The Great Mother is the first sphere that the child has the relationship with. It's the first basic dyad. And he's going to go through, spend the rest of the book analyzing the child's relationship with the mother, as well as interpersonal relationships, of course. But this is how he sets the stage for how he sees the basic situation of ontological anxiety that attends the collapse of these spheres. So we'll go through it chapter by chapter. It is a big book. It's a bit anathema for critical theory. Nobody really writes books of this size anymore, and I think that each one is like 500 pages. They end up roughly being, or more than that actually, they end up roughly being 2,500 pages total. This one's 600 something. But we'll go through the first one, and according to Semiotext, they have told me that the second book on globes won't be out until 2014, so that's a while away. So this is going to be a slow process of absorbing these ideas in English. But Sloterdijk, I think, is one of the great thinkers who is living now. He is a great thinker who is living and teaching in Germany, and he has a television show in Germany where he has philosophers on and they discuss ideas, wonderful things that are done in Europe that aren't done in America and never will be. So that's where we're at for the introduction to Peter Sloterdijk's Spheres, Volume 1, Bubbles.